Welcome everyone back to my channel. I know it's been a little while again. It's almost feel like I disappear after every video, doesn't it? Life's been keeping me busy lately. Work, trip to Italy, then even more work after getting back. But during all of that, something very interesting showed up at my door. Gaahleri sent me one of their newest tools to put through its paces. And here it is, and here we have it, the reason why we're here today, the brand new TurboX Mini from Gaahleri, a compact air compressor designed specifically for airbrushing, and one that immediately called my attention for several reasons. Now, the package the Gaahleri sent me over is actually the combo version, which includes both the TurboX Mini compressor and the Gaahleri Airbrush. This package is currently available in Amazon, while the solo version is found at Gaahleri website and spraygunner.com. I'll leave links in the description. Before we get to the new airbrush, I want to show you this, my original Gaahleri 4 years old, bought it with my own money. It reminds me just how far this hobby has taken me. It's been with me for 4 years already, and it's the very first one that I own and refuses to retire. And while they were at it, they also sent me these Gaahleri translucent paints. We're not using them today, but that's about to change in the next video. Today is about the hardware. The next mission is where they come into play. And the primary set bead. Can't forget this, we'll need them later. Alright, let's see what we got. First of all, huge thank you to Gaahleri for trusting me with this review. You guys already know I don't just review their products, I actually use them. And if you're looking for a place to pick one up, I can generally recommend Spray Gunner. They've been my go-to retailer for years and I trust them with my own purchases. Now let's get the included 1/4 ounce paint cup on, and there we go. Hold on, something is missing here. I can't leave an airbrush looking like this. Trust me, once you use a quick connect, you never go back again. Every single one of mine gets a quick connect. Trust me, it's worth it. Alright, first things first, let's get everything set up. That's a lot better. There we go. Now we remove the sticker, looks even cleaner now. Braided hose included, Gaahleri 39 as you previously saw it, and yes, even included the holder for the airbrush. Little details like that never go unnoticed. Everything you need is laid out exactly where you would expect it. Air hose on the side, mode control, and 12-volt power around the back. I leave it in compatible mode because it keeps the airflow smoother when I'm working with the smaller nozzles and finer spray patterns. Moisture filter on, Gaahleri 39 connected, all good. Press and hold the knob for 3 seconds, and the TurboX Mini comes to life. From here, turn it right to raise the pressure, or left to bring it back down. One press takes you to the low setting, another gives you medium, and a third brings you up to a maximum pressure. Double press the knob and the display switches over to temperature. You can turn it either way to choose between Celsius and Fahrenheit, then double press again to return to the PSI display. Let's see how the pressure changes with the Gaahleri 39. At idle, we're sitting at around 34 psi. Pull the trigger and it drops up to around 13 psi under airflow. Low preset about 6 psi, and watch carefully what's next. Medium around 9.5. High back to 13. Now let's compare that with the Möbius 0.2mm. And for comparison, let's switch over to the Möbius 0.2mm. Because of its smaller internal air passages, you'll notice the dynamic PSI reads higher than it did with the Gaahleri 39. That doesn't mean the compressor is producing more pressure, it's simply the way a smaller nozzle and tighter air channels affect the airflow. Same compressor, different airbrush, different dynamic PSI. Since dynamic PSI is only measured with airflow, to set your desired dynamic PSI, press and hold the trigger while turning the control knob. That way you are adjusting the actual working pressure that you need to paint your model kits. Keep that in mind always, because this is crucial to have the proper air pressure. I will personally leave it at the compatible mode. It delivers smoother, more controlled airflow, especially with smaller airbrushes. That's the setting I found worked best during my testing. Now, one of the things I need to do is test something about the air compressor. I want to make sure the compressor is aligned to me when it comes to air pressure. To do that, I am going to use this little analog pressure gauge. It's going to let us verify whether the pressure coming from the compressor actually matches what the regulator says. So, let's test it and find out if it's truly accurate. Alright, here we are. I'm going to keep this part as simple as possible. I'm not going to dive too deep into the technical details, but I do want to show you the settings I'm using. For this test, I'm keeping the TurboX Mini in compatible mode. This mode is designed for small flow, small nozzle airbrushes, and its main purpose is to prevent the compressor from constantly starting and stopping while you're spraying. The result is a much more consistent airflow, which is especially useful when you're working with small nozzles like a 0.2mm or even a standard 0.3mm airbrush, such as the Gaahleri Möbius. Now, the next thing I want to verify is whether the compressor is actually telling us the truth. In other words, I want to make sure the pressure display on the digital screen is the same pressure that's actually reaching the airbrush. To test that, I'm going to install this little analog pressure gauge, which will let us independently measure the air pressure coming from the compressor. Now, the first number you see on the TurboX Mini display is what's known as the static PSI. This is the pressure that's sitting inside the air hose and the compressor while you're not spraying. Since there's no airflow yet, that number remains steady. The moment you press the trigger, the air begins to flow through the airbrush. You transition from static PSI to dynamic PSI. That's the pressure that really matters because it's the pressure you're actually painting with. As soon as the airflow begins, you'll notice the PSI drops on the display. At the lowest setting on the TurboX Mini, you're seeing its minimum working pressure. For smaller airbrushes, that's perfectly fine. However, if you're using something like the Gaahleri 39, which is designed as more of a general purpose airbrush, it naturally requires a little more airflow. Its larger internal air passages simply need more pressure to perform at their best. At the highest setting, we're getting roughly 13 psi while actually spraying. That's the dynamic pressure being delivered through the airbrush. Now comes the moment of truth. As you can see, the digital display settles around 13.5 to 14 psi while spraying. So now we compare that reading with the analog pressure gauge. The analog gauge is reading approximately 15 psi. That's only a very small difference, and in my opinion, it's much better to see the analog gauge reading slightly higher than lower. For a portable compressor like this, that's an excellent result. So for me, this test passes. Now that we confirm the compressor is giving us accurate pressure readings, let's test a different type of airbrush. This time, instead of the Gaahleri 39, we're switching over to the Gaahleri Möbius 0.2mm, which is designed primarily for fine detail work. Since this airbrush has much smaller nozzle and more restricted internal passages, we should expect to see higher dynamic PSI while spraying. For comparison, the Gaahleri 39 was delivering around 15 psi under airflow. Now let's see what happens with the Möbius 0.2mm. We press the trigger, and you can see the display drop to approximately 26.5 psi. That drop isn't because the compressor suddenly became less powerful. It's because the airbrush requires less airflow to operate. The smaller nozzle and narrower internal air passages create more restriction, allowing the compressor to maintain a higher working pressure while air is flowing. And that's really the biggest difference between airbrushes with larger air channels and smaller air channels. Now let's verify that reading. Looking over at the analog pressure gauge, we're seeing approximately 25 to 26 psi. So once again, the analog gauge confirms what the digital display is telling us, and that's exactly what we wanted to verify. To make things a little easier to understand, Gaahleri also provided this reference chart showing the maximum dynamic working pressure measured with several of their airbrush models. One thing you'll notice is that the maximum dynamic PSI changes from one airbrush to another. The reason is actually very simple. Every airbrush has a different internal airflow design. Generally speaking, airbrushes with smaller nozzles such as the 0.2 mm require less airflow, allowing them to maintain a higher dynamic PSI. As you move to a larger nozzle sizes, the airbrush requires more airflow, which naturally results in a lower dynamic PSI while air spraying. And that, ladies and gentlemen, it is perfectly normal. It's exactly what we expected to see. So let's perform one final test. This time we're switching to the Möbius 0.3 mm. Unlike the 0.2 mm version, this airbrush requires more airflow to operate because its nozzle and internal air passages are larger. A moment ago, the Möbius 0.2 mm was producing around 26 psi. Now, with the Möbius 0.3 mm, we're seeing approximately 19 psi while spraying, mainly because the air passages are larger than the Möbius 0.2 mm, and putting it below 5 to 6 psi below the 0.2 mm. And once again, let's verify that with the analog pressure gauge. We're reading between 19 and 20 psi, actually about 18.5 psi. That's exactly close to what the digital display is showing. So once again, the reading is accurate. At this point, we tested multiple airbrushes with the different nozzle sizes, and every single result has consistently matched the analog pressure gauge. So before we even spray a single drop of paint, I'll say the TurboX Mini has done an excellent job of delivering accurate and reliable working pressure. And now we get to the end of this video. We've answered one very important question. The TurboX Mini delivers exactly what it promises. And now you know how to verify it for yourself. More importantly, you now understand the difference between static PSI and dynamic PSI, why different airbrushes produce different working pressures, and why the compressor isn't always the one to blame. So sometimes also, it's not always the airbrush fault. Sometimes it's the user's fault. But I think we spent enough time staring at pressure gauges. It's time to see what this little compressor can really do, because in part 2, we're putting together everything we've learned into practice. We'll be testing Kaleido Colorworks paints, primers, metallics, translucent colors, different airbrushes, and real-world painting performance. No more theory, no more pressure charts, just paint, plastic, and a whole lot of airbrushing. Piece by piece, everything starts coming together, and trust me, we're just getting started. And if you enjoyed today's video or maybe learned something new, I really appreciate a like. And if you'd like to follow this project and plenty more to come, consider subscribing. And until then, for the next video, you'll see this guy coming to life. And on to the next. I eliminate all obstacles. The mission will continue. Good night. Hi! I was hoping you will be here in the end. It really means the world that you're here. Your presence is kind of appreciated. And I just want to say thank you for always being there, for all your support, for all your encouragement, and for always watching my videos. It really means so much, and I wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And don't forget to always smile. We all need a smile, including me. And I promise to have one once in a while. We all need it. Thank you so much once again, and see you around, and on to the next. Good night. Smile.